jail at one time.
Where is your facility? Is it in Roslyn?
No, it's right in the courthouse area. It's a high-rise facility that looks like an office building. So I am opposed to this bill because I think that it is trying to take what should be policy, procedure, regulation and turn it into code, and that worries me that things will open Pandora's box.
Are you currently involved in the regulatory process that's underway with the Sheriff's Association developing and promulgating those regulations?
Yes, now that I'm aware of it, we are going to speak on open session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other opposition to the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Mike Edwards on behalf of the Virginia Association of Regional Jails. The legislative arm of the association has met and considered this legislation, and they wanted me to stay on script and be very clear in their message, and that is that they support the intent of Delegate Holt's bill, but associate myself with the comments of Mr. Jones and Sheriff Arthur, respectfully suggest the appropriate forum for reviewing any standards or changes to any standards would be through the Board of Corrections, where all parties are able and eligible to come and participate.
You support the regulatory process that's underway?
Which we understand that currently national ethics and the current policy is least restrictive restraints possible.
So you oppose the bill?
They have a no position on the bill, Mr. Chairman, because again, they support the intent, but they would prefer that the vehicle used for addressing the issue would be through the board.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to the bill?
My name's Joe Higgs. I'm the superintendent at Rappahannock Regional Jail. You've heard several testimony here today, some of it very inflammatory. And I can't comment on certain issues that were presented to you for facts because I'm on notice of pending litigation on those issues. It's unfortunate that some of the information that was provided to you simply isn't true. And it was never verified by the author of that information to come to my facility and interview, which they're welcome to do, any of the inmates or females there. I have policy and procedure in place that does not allow for any female to be shackled, as you call it. We call them restraints. Shackling is the old ball and chain terminology and is inflammatory in itself. But my policy does not allow for females to be restrained during delivery and labor. They are handcuffed in front as they go through and outside the facility. As they're put on a gurney in the rescue unit, the handcuffs are removed until they get up to the hospital and taken into where they're going. So I know that the Virginia Association of Regional Jail Superintendents, I'm one of 21 of those, I just heard took a no position on it. I'm opposed to the bill in the sense that it's taking away or mandating law, Mr. Chairman, where it should be policy and procedure. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Anyone else wishing to speak against the bill? All right. Questions from the panel?
This is very important, I mentioned, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Mrs. Walker, would you come forward, please? What was presented to you just now? She has got emails of evidence where she's given to Mr. Hicks. No,
this is not a court of law.
No, I understand that. But he was trying to discredit her testimony. She brought with her emails to the superintendent of Rappahannock, communicated with him, and what he stated is not true. She's got the documentation, and anybody in the news or anybody else would like to see this, we've got the documentation with her, and please look at it today, because they've already said about the least restraints. They talk about policy. They've had that policy for years, and guess what? It means zero. Policy doesn't work, and it's proven. They said the least restrictive means. Let's get a law passed. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Delegate Hope, talk about your involvement with the regulations that are being promulgated and why you feel the need to come forward with legislation in the midst of those regulations.
Thank you for asking. Let me just say that the Department of Corrections, which oversees the prison system, has adopted similar policy. The Board of Corrections, which oversees the local and regional jails, has also adopted similar policy, but has started the process to promulgate regulations that would mirror what you see before you. January, I believe it's January this year, that a notice went out. And so that process is just beginning. The coalition felt strongly that we needed to codify this because they didn't want anyone to come in and poke holes in it or just really just create an exception that you could drive a truck through. And so they felt strongly that we needed to codify this in the legislation. And I told them that I would carry that. We can have that discussion. I think that's a policy discussion for the committee. I mean, do we want to regulate? I mean, if you look at the language, it's not that detailed. It doesn't go into, I know you heard that it was detailed. It's really not that detailed. The only thing we say that you never ever do is you never do the face down 4-point restraints, and you never do the, you remove the leg restraints during labor and delivery. And there was one other, I'm sorry, I missed it. No waist restraints. So that's a never that you would never do. And let me just say, I think that if you were to poll the local and regional jails and the prisons, if you just asked them to say, do you do any of these things, they don't do it anyway. And they would say that they won't do it. Now, I know that there's cases where, you know, it's back and forth, and we don't need to litigate what's happened in the past. Going forward, and this is what this is about, going forward, are you comfortable with this already? And I think most people would say, yes, we are. The rub is that people think we should do this during regulation and not in codifying the language. And so I think that that is a policy discussion that we need to have at our level. I mean, we do this all the time, Mr. Chairman. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't allow the regulatory process to play out. If they would like to do that, if you would rather the regulatory process to play out, I think we need to say so and move in that direction. But if you'd rather legislate in this area, codify that under these circumstances, this is Virginia's statement that we'll never do it in these cases, still allowing the correctional officers full discretion that when someone poses a risk, that we allow them to do what's necessary to protect the public, which I know they already do. This is not an indictment against them at all, and I want to make sure that the language reflects that. So I think it's up to you, Mr. Chairman, if you would rather this be played out in the regulatory arena and just see what happens, or would you rather make a statement and codify what I think everyone agrees already should be done?
Delegate Phillicorn.
Just would like to start by thanking everybody that's come here today to testify. I think it took a lot of courage, certainly a lot of your time and effort, personal stories, and the citizens, the independent business owners that came here. I've never seen such a broad coalition before in my tenure here. I think that says a lot. Having NARAL here and the Family Foundation, having so many groups and associations. I think we agree that public safety is definitely our #1 concern. And I strongly believe that this bill would not jeopardize that, would not jeopardize the safety of the inmates, would not jeopardize the safety of the officers or anybody involved, while also preserving the sanctity of birth, the well-being of the pregnant inmate. I'd like to also commend our patron, who has really gone to great efforts to work with you all, build such a great coalition, take the time and effort since last year, since we heard this bill, to put this group together and really work on this issue. I think it's no surprise as the only female sitting around this table, as also the only mom sitting, well, I should say, excuse me, around this, the only delegate here, elected official around this table, certainly the only mom on this subcommittee, and who also has delivered 2 children myself, that I am strongly in support of this bill. And I hope it'll be the pleasure of this body to pass it.
Thank you, Delegate. And Delegate Hope, we do want to thank you for the work that you have put into this issue. It is an issue that has gotten a lot of concern from a lot of different folks and groups around the state, and I do agree with you that oftentimes we do seek to either, where there's a lack of regulatory action, speak through our laws, or if regulatory actions are insufficient or somehow failing us, step in with laws. Here you have a regulatory process underway by individuals who say they share your goals. You're involved in the regulatory process and consulting on that, and it's not done yet. So it may very well be that the regulations, when they come out, satisfy all of our concerns, because admittedly, there are conditions that the gentleman spoke of that would put at risk the unborn child. Any type of danger to that child we want to be cognizant of and careful to avoid. So I share the gentleman's concern in that vein and hope that the regulations are successful. I do have concerns with the substitute and the breadth of the application of the substitute. I don't know, as these regulations are going forward, whether they will be this broad, whether they will apply to months or week 1 to week, I guess it'd be about 30, where you're prior to labor or delivery. I also am concerned about detainees because in a lot of cases you do have women who upon arrest are violent, and we want to make sure that law enforcement has the tools at their disposal to protect themselves, protect the public, and protect these inmates, these women who are being arrested, because a lot of times, and I've seen it a lot in my job as prosecutor, upon arrest, sometimes women and men are intoxicated, under the influence of various drugs, and can be acting out in ways that they would not if they were sober. So for their own safety as well, we have to be concerned about giving law enforcement those tools to protect that safety. So I am concerned about the breadth of the substitute, and I'm also concerned about the need to let the regulatory process play out before we come back with a law.
Look, can I, Mr. Chairman, thank you for that, and I share your concerns for that as well. I did anticipate that because the regulatory process is moving on. This coalition has been very active. I appreciate them letting me join them in their efforts, but in doing this, and it hasn't, I don't think you've created ever a broad coalition like this to agree on one particular issue. So we have something here that we need to work on. Mr. Chairman, if we could let the regulatory process play out, I would like the legislature to send a message to that process and to say that we support the promulgation of regulations that generically says that no state or regional, local juvenile correctional facility shall use restraints. And we can narrow it to what you're saying, only during labor and transport. And I don't know if you would entertain this, Mr. Chairman, but I did put a very short proposal together that it's very generic. It talks about, it captures some of the language here that says, I'm sorry, that says that you shall use restraints in any prisoner who is pregnant during labor, transport, or medical facility, delivery, or postpartum recovery, unless there is reasonable necessary circumstances to believe that that prisoner poses serious harm to herself or others. Such facility shall use the least restrictive restraints necessary. I think that that's generic and broad enough. It allows the process to continue out. You fill in all the details at the regulatory process. And then the B there is the reporting requirement, because I do want to know whether this is happening. You know, we've collected over 17 different stories, Mr. Chairman, of this going on. I don't know if they're true or not. I take everyone for their word. I know that there's always another side to every story. We don't need to litigate what's happened in the past, this body, but what we do need to know is whether it's continuing. And I would like the subcommittee to entertain this legislation that is just generic, make the statement that we let the process, the details we filled in at the regulatory process, but as a legislature, we say that this is not an appropriate way to treat women. And the details can be worked out at the regulatory process, and as that process plays out, and if we don't like it, then we can fill in the details. If we are comfortable with it, then it continues.
And I think that we can send that message in multiple ways. We can send that message through our actions, but also we have the players here promulgating the regs. We can let them know right now that this subcommittee, this appears to be a restatement of general policy by what I would argue would be the vast majority of facilities around the state. This is kind of a guiding, the least restrictive restraints is guiding policy for these facilities. So I would think that we could say that to the Sheriff's Association promulgating the regulations, that we would like to see something similar to this that shares these goals in the regulations, and that would be enough in my mind.
I guess what I'm asking, Mr. Chairman, is that we codify this
I understand.
generic statement.
I understand. I think it would be premature to act while the regulations are still playing themselves out. But if Phillips wanted to move
I would like to
those
move
amendments,
these amendments.
is there a second on the amendments? Hearing no second, that motion dies.
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate Pope.
I want to work with the Sheriff's Department. Could we carry the bill over to 2013 while this process continues out? I would hate for this bill to die.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we carry this bill over to 2013.
Okay.
I think it sends the wrong message, Mr. Chairman, if we were to defeat the bill to the regulatory process.
I would argue that carrying a bill over with specific language also sends a message that might not be the one we want to send. I think we want to say that we agree with the process, that we support the process, that we hope that these individuals who know, who are very experienced and know what their jobs are and what their challenges are, much more than any of us, even those of us who work in these communities with law enforcement agents. Before we say these are the factors that should be considered, we should see if the regulatory process can play itself out and reflect those considerations. So I'd be hesitant to carry the bill over, but the delegate has moved to carry the bill over under Rule 22. Is there a second? All right, hearing on that bill,
I know you provided
motion
me
dies.
the courtesy for my previous bill, but I understand the chair's position.
That's just fine.
Supporting the decision.
But, all right. Are there any other motions on the bill?
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate Will.
I want to also take the time to thank everybody for coming in. And I mean, I think it's an agreement that we all are looking to go to the same end. And I appreciate the delegates' work, a lot of hard work on this, and working with the various groups. And you know, if we can address it by the testimony, the Department of Corrections is looking at, I mean, by your own admission, they're going in that direction, the Board of Corrections, and then that's going to be handed down. It's going to bring in uniformity to the local level, which is, you know, where we've heard there's concern. And so I'm always cautious in legislating what can be done through this process. And you're right, sometimes we do that, but in this situation, I think we owe it to all of your hard work, as well as the different departments and agencies' hard work, to try to answer, because they didn't start working on this just on their own. It's been the testimony from folks for a number of years that have a concern. I think the departments have heard that concern. They realize that this issue needs to be addressed, and they're doing so. And I commend them for it, and want to give you all time to continue that process and bring it to its finality. And so, Mr. Chairman, with that, I would move that we gently table the bill.
All right, there's a motion to lay the bill on the table. Is there a second? Second. All right, there's a motion second to lay the bill on the table. It's a non-debatable motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, 1 no. All right, that bill is laid on the
Thank
table.
you so
Delico,
much
thank
for
you
your
for being
time.
here. Thank you all for being here and for your testimony. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see the truth of what's taking place up in Stafford, go to YouTube and Justice Journals.
There is. There's one more bill, guys.
Gilbert asked that I come.